wish that you were down at my house right now, because I need some help. You see, my neighbors are moving. My upstairs neighbors. We live in a two-family home, and the neighbors who've been there are great folks. They have been there longer than we have, and there's a transfer to upstate New York going on, and so Christian has a truck and a trailer, and he's loading all of his stuff on it, and his wife Naomi is loading her stuff, and they are getting ready to leave us bereft. They've been good neighbors. Now, what I need you for isn't just to help me emotionally as these good folks make their way somewhere else, but what I need is help cleaning up. You see, the basement has become, what's the word? An abomination, yes. An abomination would have been a better way to say it. You see, when we moved in, Christian and Naomi, who are wise people and have basically only what they need, had almost everything they owned in their apartment and a couple things up in the attic of the house that we really don't have access to. And I think they had like 2 things in the basement. So even though the basement was neatly divided into 2 halves, the Bryant-Smith stuff began to expand. Well, now that Christian and Naomi are leaving, and there are new tenants who are going to be coming in, we're having this moment where the eyes get really big, and we go, oh, you know, so everything has to now fit back in just our half of the basement. Now, part of this is just a matter of simple housekeeping. The piles have spread, they can be reconsolidated, we've gotten some shelving units, and so that's helping, but the real problem is that having moved several times in the last couple decades, Kimberly and I have done what so many people do, where you have the box of stuff that you make one move with, and then you pick it up and you move it to the next house, and you pick it up and move it to the next house. You're not even really sure if what is labeled on it is true, because there's like 5 generations of labeling. So we've been consolidating, we've been going through things, we have been trying to figure out what is it that we own that we actually want to own versus what is it that is taking up space that doesn't need to be taken up. I opened up one box that said videotapes, and sure enough, it's chock full of VHS tapes, most of them unlabeled, because whoever labels VHS tapes. And I am sure that most of them are absolute garbage. I mean, who even has a VCR anymore? I found one box that was labeled important financial documents. So I opened it up and it's got pay stubs from 15 years ago. I found a Sunday school offering envelope from 1978 that is full of Canadian coins. Pennies. They don't use pennies in Canada anymore. They're smarter than we are. I found a Ziploc sandwich bag full of gravel. I have no idea why there's a Ziploc bag full of gravel. I pulled out a telescope that kind of, sort of, mostly works-ish, that I've been carting around since I was 12 years old in hopes of maybe fixing it. If I haven't fixed it now, chances are I'm not going to. It's amazing the things we pick up as we go through our lives, the things that we carry with us that take up our space and our time, those things that, quite honestly, we're paying rent for just to keep them. Now, of course, there were some treasures. Among the videotapes, I found one that said, Ian Kenneth Bryant-Smith, ultrasound. We found the video where when Kimberly was there, the ultrasound technician was running the little machine over her belly, and he said, okay, there's the fingers and there's the toes, and he's a boy, and you didn't want to know that, didn't you? We found the video. Now, we still don't have a VCR, but you know, we have the video, and that's not going anywhere. That is an important thing, and maybe one day we'll pay somebody to put it on disc for us, just so that we can watch it. Now, Ian, of course, said, I bet that's boring. And perhaps if you're not the parent, it is, but it's a treasure. You know, I found some other things, some treasures in that mix. I found the mortar board that I got when I graduated from seminary. Not that I didn't wear it, but it has happy memories associated with it. I found some of Kimberly's things that have been kicking around from when she was little. I found a box full of family photos, including my baby album. I think I'll keep that. You know, we have this trash, we have this treasure, and so often it gets mixed up on the shelving units in the basement. You know, our spiritual lives are like that too. In Galatians, Paul writes about the stuff we pick up and carry with us, what he calls the works of the flesh, that garbage that we frankly should have gotten rid of long ago, but that keeps nagging us. And he gives us the list: fornication, impurity, licentiousness, idolatry, sorcery. That's probably not such a big one. Enmities, strife, jealousy, anger, quarrels, dissensions, factions. Not fractions. No, I've got to say, back when I was taking math as a little guy, fractions were pretty evil. But factions without an R, envy, drunkenness, carousing. And then Paul goes on to give us the catch-all, and things like these. And I think it's important that he gave us that, and things like these. Don't we tend to make our list and say, well, if it's not on the list, then it's okay? Yeah? You know, it's like the 10 Commandments. So long as I do those 10 things, I'm good. But what about all the other things that we ought to be doing? Paul paints this picture of the works of the flesh and the works of the Spirit as being opposed, not as a hard and fast list of rules, but as ways of being, as attitudes, as well as actions. You know, he points to envy, quarreling, factions without the R. Those things divide us into the little groups where we complain to one another instead of talking as family. Paul then, of course, turns things around and gives us this list of treasures, of the gifts of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness. Did I say gentleness already? And self-control. These things that really fill our spirits, those treasures that we pick up as we make our way through life, that help us be better people, that help us interact with one another in better ways, that help us really live as part of the family of God. Now, as we go through life, we do tend to pick up whatever it is that we're doing, don't we? Going to the basement, I certainly found that I had picked up little bits of old projects. All those little IKEA parts, the ones you don't actually need, but they give you anyway, the ones where they say, please attach your footstool to the wall because it might fall over. Never, you know, it clearly has made the lawyers happy. But you know, all those extra pieces. I found a box of little brass screws that were left over from some project. There aren't enough for another project that, you know, I've been carrying that with me. My activities keep coming back in these little treasures and trash finds. Certainly the trash finds. And I'm trying to clear them out. That's what we're all really doing. Taking stock of what we have been doing in our lives, realizing that whether good or ill, we've been carrying that with us. When we come to church as people trying to clear out the junk, as people trying to get rid of those works of the flesh and to find those gifts of the Spirit. to hold them as precious, to pick up things that we want to carry, and not just to pick up things that take up our spiritual space. Now, from the Hebrew Bible this morning, we had another reading about picking things up. Elijah and Elisha, the great prophet and his student, who have been making their way through Gilgal. And Elijah knows that he's reaching the end of his road. And he tells Elijah that the day is coming. Elisha, of course, decides that as the student who has been closest to this prophet, he wants to be the next in line to take the responsibility for speaking God's word to the people of Israel. There's this back and forth that keeps going where Elisha asks Elijah, "Let me inherit a double share of your spirit." That double share is the eldest son's portion in an inheritance. Let me be the one to take your place when you're gone. And Elijah, of course, gives a non-committal answer each time. No, I can't tell you what's going to happen. Oh, no, I can't promise you a thing, he says. And finally, he says, look, whatever God does, God's going to do. I'm not going to make that decision. And as soon as he says that, he's caught up to heaven in a whirlwind with chariots of fire. Not the movie about the but he's caught up to heaven. And as he's caught up, his mantle, his cloak, falls to the ground behind him. And Elisha, who's been watching this whole thing, bends down and picks it up. He's picking up a treasure. The treasure of the mantle of his teacher, but also the treasure of the mantle of the prophet. He picks up that responsibility. Someone needs to speak for God. And so Elisha, having asked for that, picks it up. You know, we have mantles that have been dropped all around us. Mantles of responsibility, mantles of legacy. Certainly within this congregation, there are those who have gone before doing the work of God, leading all kinds of programs. And as they've moved on, you have picked up those mantles. You have taken for yourselves that responsibility. You have taken in hand the gifts of God for this church. And that's a good thing. It's a very good thing. Because when we pick things up that help carry us forward, when we pick up the supplies we need for our journey, when we pick up that mantle of responsibility, when we pick up those gifts of the Spirit, they indeed transform us, making us better than what we once were, and helping us be those people who prepare for the next generation, for that day when we too will hand off the mantle that we have worn and carried, so that others too can find lives of service and joy and spirit. So here we are doing some, well, it's too late to call it spring cleaning, but doing some cleaning, whether in our basements or in our hearts. But that's the journey, isn't it? To always be conscious of what it is that we pick up and carry, so that we might always be connected to the power of God. May we be blessed as we take stock of our lives and the gifts of God. Amen. Amen.